The plane's cabin hummed with that familiar blend of engines, soft chatter, and overhead announcements as Elena stepped through the narrow aisle, clutching her worn backpack like it was the last piece of stability she had in the world. Her fingers dug into the fraying strap, the fabric rough from years of use. She kept her head slightly bowed, partly because she didn't want to bump into anyone, and partly because she didn't want anyone to see the exhaustion in her eyes. She felt small among the well-dressed passengers in crisp sweaters and travel jackets, all looking fresh, confident, secure, everything she wasn't. Her ticket crinkled between her fingers. Row 29, seat C, last row. She exhaled shakily. At least back there, no one usually paid attention to you. When she reached the final seat, she stopped. A little girl sat there alone, hugging a plush white bunny as if it were her lifeline. She couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor, swinging nervously above the carpet. She turned the moment Elena appeared beside her, eyes wide and deep brown, like she had been waiting, or hoping, for someone to fill the empty seat. "Hi," the girl whispered. Her voice was light but fragile. "You can sit here. My daddy had to go in the front because he's busy." Elena blinked, taken aback by how politely the girl spoke. She tried to smile despite the weariness gripping her bones. "Thank you," she murmured, lowering herself gently into the seat. The little girl scooted just an inch closer, studying her with that innocent curiosity only children have. Not judgmental, not assessing her clothes or her tired face, just observing, as if trying to understand her. Elena tucked her backpack under the seat and kept her hands on her lap. She hoped the girl wouldn't notice how badly they trembled. She hadn't slept in almost 2 days. The shelter had been louder than usual. Someone cried all night, someone argued, someone coughed non-stop, and through it all, Elena had stared up at the ceiling, wondering what she would do if this trip didn't work out. If she didn't get the job. If she didn't get lucky just once. The flight attendant leaned down toward the little girl. "Your father is just up front if you need anything, okay? He said he'll check on you soon." The girl nodded, but her hands tightened around her bunny. Elena noticed the tiny tremor in her fingers, fear, perhaps. Or loneliness. Elena knew both very well. "Are you okay?" Elena asked softly. The little girl pressed her lips together. "I don't like flying alone," she whispered. "Daddy says it's safe, but it feels scary without someone next to me." Her voice cracked on the last word, and Elena felt something tug deep in her chest. She remembered being that child at 7 years old, clutching her own stuffed toy on a bus with strangers, waiting for a mother who worked 2 jobs and did everything she could. She remembered the ache, the wish for someone to sit beside her. "What's your name?" Elena asked gently. "Lily." The little girl pointed shyly at her bunny. "This is Snowball. He's scared too." Elena smiled. "Well, I'm Elena, and I'm here now. I'll help you keep Snowball brave, okay?" Lily's eyes lit up, a tiny spark in a frightened world. She nodded eagerly. The plane rattled as luggage was loaded below. The hum of engines grew louder. Lily leaned closer without asking, as though Elena had already become a safe place. Elena didn't mind. In truth, she welcomed it. It had been so long since someone trusted her without question. The plane began to taxi, and Lily's breathing quickened. Elena reached out instinctively and placed her hand over the girl's. Lily froze, then slowly relaxed under her touch. "It's just bumps in the sky," Elena said, her voice soft and steady. "We're completely safe." Lily closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in slowly, and Elena could almost feel her small heart racing. Snowball was pressed tight against Lily's chest, its fur worn down in patches from too much love and too many scary moments. When the plane finally lifted into the air, Lily dug into the small pouch hooked to her tiny backpack. She pulled out a crinkled white package, a single chocolate chip cookie. Probably the airport freebie or something her father gave her to keep her calm. She opened it slowly, with deliberate care, then broke it in half. The pieces weren't even, but she pushed the bigger piece toward Elena with 2 hands. "For you," Lily whispered. "If I share my cookie, will you stay with me until we land?" Elena's throat tightened so quickly she almost couldn't speak. She had gone days without a proper meal. She had fought for jobs, been dismissed, been ignored, been overlooked. But no act of kindness had ever felt as pure, as unexpectedly tender, as this child offering her the bigger half of her only cookie. "Yes," Elena whispered, her voice breaking with warmth she hadn't felt in years. "I'll stay with you the whole way." Lily smiled so brightly it felt like sunrise breaking through the dim cabin lights. Up in first class, behind a thin curtain, a man in an immaculate suit kept glancing back restlessly. His assistant sighed. "Sir, she's fine. I told you, the flight attendant said she's with another passenger." But Adrian Hale didn't relax. He ran a multinational company with thousands of employees. He negotiated $20 million deals in minutes. Yet the idea of his daughter alone in a turbulence-prone flight made him uneasy in a way that felt too personal, too raw. "She doesn't talk to strangers," he muttered. "She barely speaks to people she knows." But when he looked again, something in him froze. Lily wasn't alone. She wasn't afraid. She was smiling, a small, peaceful smile he hadn't seen since his wife passed away. And she was holding the hand of a woman with tired eyes and soft warmth in her expression, a woman who seemed to instinctively know how to calm her. For the first time that day, Adrian felt something he hadn't expected. Relief. And curiosity. And something deeper he didn't yet know how to name. He had no idea who Elena was. But she had just done something priceless, something no amount of money had been able to do. She had made his daughter feel safe. And neither of them knew it yet, but nothing about this flight would end the way any of them expected. The moment the plane lifted into the clouds, Elena felt it, an odd, unfamiliar sense of safety. Maybe it was the soft hum of the engines, or maybe it was the warmth of the small hand still resting lightly on her sleeve. Mia had fallen asleep halfway through her cookie, her head tilted onto Elena's arm as though they'd known each other for years. Elena didn't dare move. It wasn't just that she didn't want to wake the girl, something deeper held her still, something she hadn't felt in a long time. The gentle weight of a child trusting her, leaning on her without hesitation, stirred memories she usually kept locked away. Memories of bedtime story promises and little arms wrapped around her neck, a familiar voice calling out, "Mama," followed by the silence that came after illness took too much too quickly. She swallowed hard, blinking back the sting that threatened behind her eyes. Across the aisle, Jacob watched quietly. He'd been pretending to read his tablet for the past 20 minutes, but his focus never stayed on the screen. Instead, his gaze kept drifting to the way his daughter slept so peacefully against the stranger. It was rare. Mia didn't sleep easily, not since her mother passed. Nights were usually spent with whispered fears, clinging hands, and tear-soaked pajamas. The fact that she was resting now, calm, deep, safe, made a strange ache spread through his chest. He didn't know what this woman had said or done, but it was something he hadn't managed in months. He found himself studying Elena's face, the exhaustion etched beneath her eyes, the careful stillness of her posture, the quiet sadness she carried like a faint shadow. She wasn't someone who demanded attention, she was someone who blended into the background, unnoticed unless you looked closely. But once you did, it was impossible not to keep looking. He wondered what brought her on this flight. Her clothes were clean but worn, her shoes slightly scuffed, her bag small enough to suggest she was traveling light, maybe too light. He wasn't one to judge, but years of reading people as a CEO had taught him to recognize struggle. And the way she held herself, as if her bones were tired, not just her body, told him she carried weight no one could see. When the flight attendant came by to offer drinks, Jacob shook his head and whispered, "She's sleeping," nodding toward Mia. The attendant smiled at the sight. "Your daughter is adorable," she whispered. Jacob hesitated for a fraction of a second before answering. "She is. She hasn't slept like that in a long time." The attendant's knowing smile faded into something gentler. She nodded and moved on. Jacob's gaze returned to Elena. Something in him needed to thank her, not just politely, but sincerely, meaningfully. But before he could gather the right words, Mia stirred. Her little fingers curled, her lashes fluttered, and she lifted her head slowly, her cheek leaving a soft imprint on Elena's sleeve. She blinked up at Elena first, giving a sleepy smile, then turned toward her father. "Daddy, I shared my cookie," she mumbled proudly, as though stating an accomplishment worthy of applause. Jacob chuckled. "I saw. Very generous of you." Mia yawned, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. "She stayed," she whispered, pointing to Elena. "I asked her to stay, and she did." The innocence of the statement caught both adults off guard. Elena felt something twist in her chest, a kind of tenderness she thought she had lost forever. While Jacob felt his throat tighten, amazed by how quickly his daughter had attached to this stranger. Elena straightened slightly, careful not to overwhelm the little girl. "I told you I'd stay," she said softly, offering a warm smile. "Promises should be kept." Mia nodded with the seriousness only children possess. Most grown-ups forget, she murmured. But you didn't. Jacob felt the words slice through him. He had promised Mia many things after her mother's death, more time, more comfort, more stability, but the truth was, he had failed more than he succeeded. Work, grief, expectations, he was drowning in them all. And Mia felt it, even though she never said it. When turbulence brushed the wings of the plane, Mia instinctively reached for Alina's hand instead of his. Jacob watched the small gesture, feeling both sadness and surprise. Elena gently squeezed the girl's hand back, steady and calm. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice a soft lull. "We're safe." Her tone was reassuring, practiced, like someone who had soothed children before. Jacob couldn't shake the question forming in his mind, "Who are you?" As the plane settled again, Mia relaxed, still holding Alina's hand. Jacob leaned slightly closer, speaking low so as not to disturb his daughter. "Thank you," he said. "You've been incredibly kind to her." Elena shook her head lightly. "She's the kind one, sharing her cookie like that." Jacob chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "She doesn't usually warm up to people so quickly. Especially lately." Elena didn't ask why, though the sorrow in his tone made it clear there was a story behind it. She simply nodded in understanding. Jacob appreciated that even more. Most people pried, she didn't, not out of disinterest, but respect. For a moment, silence settled between them, comfortable and unforced. Mia leaned her head on Elena again, and Jacob watched her with a complicated mixture of gratitude and admiration. Something in him softened in a way he didn't expect. Something quietly shifted. He found himself wanting to know more about this woman who carried sadness like worn fabric and warmth like sunlight. When the pilot announced the descent, Mia straightened excitedly. "We're landing," she squealed. Elena's smile wavered only slightly, enough for Jacob to catch it. "Are you visiting family?" he asked gently. She hesitated, a pause that lasted a heartbeat too long. "No," she answered finally. "Just starting over." Jacob didn't know why, but those words sank into him deeper than he expected. Starting over. He knew exactly how that felt. And suddenly this stranger didn't feel like a stranger at all. She felt like someone whose path wasn't crossing his by accident. As the plane dipped lower, sunlight spilled through the window, casting a soft glow over the three of them sitting together in a way that almost looked intentional. Fate-like. In the space of a single flight, something fragile yet powerful had taken root: connection, understanding, the faint outline of a story just beginning. And none of them realized yet just how much this unexpected meeting would change the course of all their lives.